So friends, let's first look at the first question. So it says that when a bullet is fired at a target, its velocity decreases by half after penetrating 30 centimeter to it. So it is penetrating 30 centimeter in the target. Let's say that this particular target is a big wooden, you say a wall, a very thick wooden wall is there. So it starts penetrating from first side and it goes 30 centimeters inside that, and then after it completes the 30 centimeter, its velocity becomes half of the initial velocity. The additional thickness it will penetrate before coming to rest. This is a routine kind of questions which you see in practice papers. So yes, let's understand the situation with the help of a diagram here. So let's suppose that this is the area from which this particular bullet is entering into this particular thickness. So from here to this entire area is your wooden wall. So as it just enters over here, as it covers 30 centimeters, its velocity, which was initial, now whatever velocity was there here, half of that will be the velocity at after 30 centimeters it has penetrated inside this particular thickness. Now it covers, let's say, x centimeters also, x centimeters more, and here the velocity is equal to 0. Fine. Okay, so how will I solve this in the most easiest way? Let us imagine that you are watching this in a camera, I mean watching this in a screen. Let us say that I am taking the video of this particular structure called as bullet piercing through this particular wall made up of wood on a camera, and I'm projecting this on a screen. So you saw how the bullet is actually entering into the wall and it is going up to this much distance, and it is becoming halted here. Here the velocity is 0. Now let us try to rewind this. So if 0 was the velocity over here, I am saying that here, let's say that the velocity is v. If the velocity here is v, then the velocity here is twice of that. Now again read the question. When bullet is fired at a target, its velocity decreases half after penetrating 30 centimeters. So here let's say that the velocity was twice of v. As it penetrates half, it becomes v, and then again it penetrates some x centimeter, then it becomes 0. Okay, so let's go in this way, right? So that becomes, so when it moves from here to here, in the real direction of the bullet, it was retardation, acceleration that opposes motion. Now if I take the reverse direction, if I see the bullet going away from this, if I rewind my video, what I see is that the bullet is going away from that. So whatever was the deceleration, now it becomes the acceleration. So it becomes all the more easier for me to solve this. No need of putting any negative sign for that. It is all the more easier for me to solve now. See, let's see how it is done. Acceleration will be constant because it is the constant wooden friction that is going to provide the acceleration. Now see how it can be done. See, I am taking velocity here v, it covers 30 centimeter, it becomes 2v. I am taking the reverse direction, I am actually reversing the video, rewinding it. So I can say 4v square is equal to v square plus of 2a into 30 by 100. Fine. So that is 3v square is equal to 2a multiplied by 30 divided by 100. So this is directly something like v square multiplied by, so that is 5v square is equal to a. We got the expression for acceleration. Now here the velocity is 0. This, let's say that this is the initial velocity. It is going in this particular direction. It covers an x centimeter. It gets the velocity of v. So again I will be using v square is equal to u square, but u is 0 here. So v square is equal to twice a is 5v square multiplied by s is x centimeters, or x in this terms of meters. Fine. So v square is cancelled. X is equal to 1 by 10 meters. So that is 100 by 10 equal to 10 centimeters. So the correct answer for this question is option D, right? 10 centimeters is the correct answer. Okay, let's switch over to the next question. That was question number 2. See guys, question number 2 is much more easier. The acceleration of an object moving with a speed v in a circle of radius r. See, if this is a circle of radius r, then this body is actually moving in this particular direction. So what is the acceleration here? One of the acceleration is towards this particular center. Now it is moving with a constant speed v. So there is no tangential acceleration. A tangential is equal to 0, and it has a centripetal acceleration. So that is a centripetal is equal to mv square by r. So the centripetal force is mv square by r. So obviously the centripetal acceleration is v square divided by r. So the correct answer is v square by r towards the center. So the correct answer for this question is option E. Direct question, isn't it? Let's go to the third question now.
So this is the question number 2. It says that an object of mass m accelerates uniformly from rest to a speed vf in time tf. Okay. The work done on the object as a function of time, some function of these two things is function of time in terms of vf and tf. That calls for a bit of calculation. I mean, bit of rearrangement in the formula. That's it. It cannot be 0 because it is actually increasing the velocity. Okay. So work done cannot be 0 because there is an increase in velocity now. So work done is equal to kinetic energy final minus of kinetic energy initial. But initial kinetic energy is equal to 0 since it is actually starting from rest. Since it is starting from rest, the initial kinetic energy is equal to 0. So work done is equal to final kinetic energy. So work done will have an equation which is very similar to kinetic energy. That means it will be in terms of half mv square. Okay. So you can see that there is no factor of time here. If I just take the dimensions of this, I mean just take this, look at this formula. There is a mass form factor and there is a velocity factor. There is no time factor in this. Here if you see this option 1, half mv square is there, then there is a t square. It cannot be correct. Why? Because 2 times square, that means time factor is coming over there. So this will not be my answer. Just see this. 1 t can get cancelled. I mean the dimensions, if you just consider this t and this t can get cancelled. At least look at how it is similar to this. Half mv square is okay. Now this only one of them will get cancelled. That means 1 t will be remaining over there. This cannot be my answer. Here also 1 t can get cancelled. The dimensions of 1 t can get cancelled over there. So obviously here again half mv square is not here, isn't it? There is not even a single v square. This cannot be my answer. Here as you can see, half m v square by t square multiplied by t square, just taking the dimensions as such, this and this can get cancelled, and here half mv square will be equal to the work as per the dimensions. So just by looking at this, just by analyzing these options, I can say that my answer is obviously option D. So the answer for this question will be surely and definitely be option D. But if you want to solve this in the correct way, I can show you that. So this is equal to half mv square. Okay. Now v is equal to u plus at. U is equal to 0. So you can take this as half m what? A square t square. Okay. Now as we know, it reaches a velocity vf in time tf. So vf is equal to a multiplied by tf. So a is equal to vf divided by tf. Substituting that over here, half m into vf divided by tf multiplied by square. There is a this square also. So this is the work done. Okay. So work done is in terms of as a function of time t in terms of vf and tf. That's it. That is what I have seen. So my answer for this question is option D.
Okay, in the third question, you can see that a solid sphere of volume V and density rho floats in the interface of two immiscible liquids of densities rho 1 and rho 2 respectively. So if this is how the densities are arranged, rho 2 greater than rho, which is the density of sphere, which is greater than rho 1, then the ratio of volume of the parts of the sphere in upper and lower liquid is. Fine. This kind of questions are normally asked in the NEET exam. You might have seen a similar question which had appeared in the you might have seen such a similar question that had appeared in the year 2016, where some of the similar concepts had to be used to solve this. Let us suppose that this is the interface between the two liquids, and I am saying that, so these are the two liquids over here. Fine. This has a density of rho 1. So this has a density of say rho 1, and this has a density rho 2, and this has a density of rho 1. Whatever has more density, rho 2 has more density, so it will be lying down, right? So this is my sphere. Fine. Okay. So let's say that it has a density rho as it is given in the question. It floats in the interface between these two liquids. I am saying that, let's say V1 is the volume of the sphere in the first liquid. V1 is the volume of the sphere in the first liquid, and V2 is the volume of the sphere in the second liquid. Now, the weight of the total weight of the sphere is actually counterbalanced by the buoyant forces of the first liquid plus the second liquid. Come again, the weight of the body, the weight of the sphere is actually, I can write it as V1 plus V2, that is the total volume, multiplied by the density. So that will become the mass of the sphere multiplied by G. So this is the weight of the sphere, this whole sphere. This is counteracted, this is balanced by the buoyant force exerted by the first liquid plus the buoyant force exerted by the second liquid. That is why it is floating in between these two liquids. Right. So how much is the buoyant force exerted by the first liquid on the ball? That is volume of the fluid displaced by the ball in the first liquid. Volume of the first liquid displaced by the ball is equal to the volume of the ball present in the first liquid, that is V1, multiplied by the density of the fluid which is displaced over here. Okay, multiplied by G, plus of volume of the second fluid displaced by the ball, that is equal to the volume of the ball which is present inside the second liquid. If V2 is the volume of the ball which is present inside the second liquid, it actually pushes out, it actually displaces V2 ml of the second fluid. So the fluid pushes the body upwards with the force which is equal to the weight of the fluid displaced by the body. Archimedes principle. The very standard Archimedes principle is utilized for the purpose of solving questions of flotation. So that will be V2 multiplied by rho 2 multiplied by G. I hope you got this particular concept. This is how you solve every question in flotation. Okay. So I just opened the brackets here. V1 rho G plus V2 rho G is equal to V1 rho 1 G plus V2 rho 2 G. That's it. G, 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 G. Cancelled. So I am just taking this to the other side. So I'll get V1 multiplied by rho minus of rho 1 is equal to V2 multiplied by what? Rho 2 minus of rho. That is rho 2 just minus of just rho. Okay. Yeah, that's it. They are asking you the ratio of volume of the sphere in upper and lower liquids is. So V1 is the volume in upper liquid, V2 is the volume in lower liquid, that is equal to rho 2 minus of rho upon rho minus of rho 1. However, we don't have such an we have this kind of an option over here. Okay, fully satisfied. So the correct answer for this question is option E. Okay, a simple question based on the concept of Archimedes principle. You'll have to remember this once. And these can, I saw a similar question in NEET 2016. I do remember that solving it in the examination hall. Okay, so let's proceed to the next question. This question, as such, whenever I see this question, I understand that it is from the topic of heat, right? And in heat, whenever you start learning this for NEET exam, they teach you that yeah, these kind of structures can be considered as just like resistors, okay, in the current electricity. There current is flowing, here heat is flowing. There you had this kind of a structure for resistance. Here you will take blocks and you will say that it is equivalent to saying that you have a resistance. Fine. So had they been resistors, they are in series combination. Now these two conductors of heat are also present in series combination. So this is series combination. Okay. So if it is series combination, I know that the current is same. That means heat current is same. So the heat which is flown per unit time, I write it as Q dot is the same. So I am saying that this is T1 over here, T2 over here. Arbitrarily, I am going to take this as T, the temperature of the interface. Okay. Now let me say they are asking you in the steady state that if the temperature of outer surface are T1 and T2, then the temperature of the common wall is. I am supposed to find out what is T here. So the current is same. So the heat flown per unit time is the same over here. So heat flown per unit time, that is equal to Q by T. That is same in both the cases. The same heat is going through this, it goes through this and it comes out like this. Provided T1 is more than T2. Right, so we are just supposed to understand this Ka multiplied by, so this is K1, A is the same. It seems that A is the same itself, isn't it? Into T1 minus T2 divided by L. So that is T1 minus of T2. T2 is that of the interface divided by L is D1. Now you can simply equate it to the same current is flowing through this. I have an analogy with the current electricity here, series combination. So So this is K2A multiplied by T minus of T2 divided by L. Okay. So what to do here? You simply solve this particular D. This is L is D2. Okay. So you just solve this and try to find out what is T. Okay. If you do that, you will get this particular option as the correct statement. So the correct answer for this question is option A. A simple question, a good question you can say. Let's proceed to the fifth question. So the fifth question is derived from the topic of your alternating current, and they say that the square root of product of inductance and capacitance, so that is root of LC. They are asking you to find the dimensions of root of LC. Typically in NEET exam you get one question from the topic of dimensions. That is a classical thing that has happened over these years. So what is this? Root of LC is equal to 1 by 2 pi f, isn't it? Right. So 1 by f is the dimension here. Dimension of 1 by f is t inverse, so 1 by f is time. So the correct answer for this question is option C. Again, a very simple equation. While the time you have studied all these kind of things in in the topic of alternating current, these things will become a cakewalk for you. So yeah, this paper is almost very simple. Answer is option C. Right? Let's proceed to the next question now. So in the sixth question, you can see it is actually brought from the topic of gravitation. Now it says that the change in potential energy when a body of mass m is raised to a height nr from the Earth's surface is where r is the radius of the Earth. Okay, so change in the potential energy can be written as u final minus of u initial. So what is the u final here? Yes, that is g m m divided by minus of gmm divided by r plus nr. Okay, minus of gmm divided by r. That's it. Now what you can do is you can simply solve this minus will become plus. Okay, and you can also substitute gm divided by r is equal to mgr. Just substitute that, so you will get option C as the correct answer for this question. So I'm not solving this because it is a very simple solution for that, right? So let's proceed to the next question. So this is something that we have always discussed. These kind of questions are very easily solved just by looking at it. See, just by looking at it in terms of external force and internal force. Very simple. So this is 2 mg in the downward direction. That's directly coming there because of the fact that the gravitation, that is the weight, is actually acting in the downward direction. Now here it is mg sine 30. Okay, so the net external force, since this mass is bigger, what happens is that 2m hangs. Okay, if the system is released, the blocks will move at an acceleration of, this is how the whole body moves like. So these two forces are the external forces. Everything inside, the tension which are inside, are internal forces. So acceleration is equal to net external force. What is the net external force here? More is this, less is this. Okay, this is more, this is less. So 2 mg minus mg by 2. Sine 30 is 1 by 2. This is mg by 2, right? So 2 mg minus of mg by 2 divided by the net mass, that is 3m. M and m will get cancelled. Okay, so this is actually coming out as 3 by 2 into 1 by 3 multiplied by g. So this is equal to g by 2. Okay, so the correct answer for this question is option C, right? So again, a simple question, you can simply use this particular method to solve that. Let's proceed to the next question. If you want to solve this in terms of the proper way by writing equation, you can also solve that and just try to see whether your answer comes as option C itself over here. Okay, let's go to the next question now.
So guys, this eighth question says that a bar magnet of magnetic moment m, fine, and moment of inertia I, okay, is freely suspended such that, so moment of inertia of this is I, such that the magnetic axial line is in the direction of magnetic meridian, fine. If the magnet is displaced by a very small angle theta, so let's say that this particular theta is very small deflection, angular acceleration is, so we'll just have to put it as tau is equal to I alpha, isn't it? I is given, we just have to find alpha, so alpha is equal to tau upon I. Now what is tau here? Minus of mb sine theta divided by I. Now, since they are saying that very small angle theta, so that particular mathematical approximation has to be used over here. For very small angle theta, sine theta is nearly equal to theta. So since theta is very small, is nearly equal to theta, I can simply write this as minus of mb theta divided by I. Okay, so this is mb theta divided by, I think it is option number A, right? I'm correct. So the correct answer for this question is option A. Let's switch over to the next question. So question number 9 is a routine question on transformer. Okay, it is taught in the topic of electromagnetic induction. A transformer has efficiency of 80%. So 80% is the efficiency. If I take it as eta is equal to power output divided by power input. Okay, so that is equal to voltage output multiplied by current output, or I can say that voltage secondary, current secondary divided by voltage primary, current primary. So that's it. We are just supposed to plug in the values over here. So 80% means 80 divided by 100. You can take this as voltage output is 250 multiplied by current output we are supposed to find out. Now voltage input is actually coming out to be equal to 200 volt. So this is a step up transformer, okay? And then there is a current primary also which we are supposed to find out, okay? Now they are saying that the power is 5 kilovolt and the voltage is this much, isn't it? So 5000 volt is equal to, see, I am talking about the input power equal to input voltage into, that is 200 multiplied by the input current, obviously. Fine. So current will come out to be equal to 25 ampere. So this is the primary. Yeah. So obviously this particular primary current will come out to be equal to this much. Okay. So this primary current I will be plugging here, that is 25, and this is current secondary. And if you solve this, current secondary will be coming out to be equal to 16 ampere. So I primary is 25 ampere, I secondary is 16 ampere. So they are asking you the primary and secondary currents are respectively. I primary is 25, I secondary is 16. Yeah, so option C is the correct answer. Simple question, isn't it? Okay, let's proceed to the next question now. So the next question is from the topic of wave optics. In Young's double slit experiment, a point P on the central bright fringe is such that the intensity of the point P is 1/4 times of the maximum intensity. Okay. Distance between the slits. So if these are the slits, obviously, then there are two slits, obviously, isn't it? So we have a screen over here. So this particular distance is given to be small d. Obviously, we all know that. And the wavelength is equal to lambda. Now they are asking you the angular separation of point P. That means angle theta is what they are asking. Okay, so they are saying that the central bright fringe is such, okay, the P is on the central bright fringe such that the intensity of the P is 1/4 times the maximum intensity. We have this particular equation, isn't it? That reminds me of I at a point is equal to, in terms of I max, okay, cos square phi by 2. So what I can do is that this I can substitute it as I max by 2, I max by 4, isn't it? They have said that here 1/4 times the maximum intensity. So I by 4, I max by 4 is equal to I max cos square phi by 2. Listen guys, what will happen after this? So I will take cos phi by 2 is equal to 1 by 2. I have taken the square to the other side, so it becomes root. So cos phi by 2 is equal to 1 by 2. That means phi by 2 is equal to pi by 3. So phi is equal to 2 pi by 3. Right? Okay. Now we will talk about that particular basic equation which you have been learning over there. Delta x upon lambda is equal to phi divided by 2 pi. So this is the basic equation which we have learned over here. So you know, this is just for the sake of solving everything in the simplest way. I am not going into any derivations or details of these kind of things. To solve this in the best way possible, we don't have to spend so much time on derivations, just using this. So delta x is equal to phi divided by 2 pi will be 1 by 3 multiplied by lambda. This implies delta x is equal to lambda by 3. And what is this path difference? Delta x. Delta x is d sine theta. Now that is equal to obviously lambda by 3. So theta is equal to, this implies theta is equal to sine inverse of sine inverse of lambda by 3d. So that's the equation for this, obviously. So lambda by 3d, option C is the correct answer for this question. Okay. Now, question number 11 is furthermore easier. See, this is something like the light rays incident on a perpendicular surface of one face of a 90-degree angle prism. So this is the 90-degree angle prism, I mean a right angled prism, and is totally internally reflected. So this is the total internal reflection which has occurred over here. Instead of going out, since this particular incident angle on this particular surface is more than the critical angle for the surface, I can say that it is undergoing total internal reflection. Now, refractive indexes. See, n, if the refractive index is n, I have a very basic equation for that. We had derived this equation in the topic of prisms. I had taken a separate lecture comprising of 4 or 5 videos for that. There we have clearly said that mu should be greater than cosec a by 2. Fine. So a is 90 degree. Cosec a by 2 is actually coming out to be equal to mu should be greater than, I mean here it is given as n, isn't it? Greater than cosec 45 degree. A is 90 degree for this angle of prism. It is given to be 90 in the question. Cosec 45 is obviously root 2. So the correct answer for this question is option E. Right? So here, yeah, option E is the correct answer. I'll say the point is that in a NEET exam, you have option as 1, 2, 3 and 4 instead of A, B, C and D, and there you'll be having only 4 options. There was a time when a lot of state level entrance exam were also conducted for medical MBBS entrance exam, and this was one such paper while I was preparing for that exam. So this is something from 2015. One institute had set this question paper and I had studied in that particular institute. I got all those things. So I thought of just using the questions of that particular paper without any kind of copyright issues or any kind of mentioning of which institute from which I have taken all these questions. Nothing of that kind. Okay. Question number 12, if I just go for this, the RMS value of electric field of light coming from the sun is given. So E RMS is given to be 720, right? The average total energy density of the electromagnetic wave is. So obviously that energy is equal to epsilon naught E square, okay? That is all that is supposed to be given over here. Just substitute the value of epsilon naught here and just take the square of this and substitute over here. So from that you will get option B as the correct answer. So I don't think I need to give you any further explanation for that. Some bit of calculation is still involved over there. Just take that particular challenge of doing calculation and you can do that. Okay. Otherwise, if I keep on solving every question, the problem is that my video length will increase tremendously high, and I don't think any person will have the patience to watch such a big video. So yeah, my channel is on the growing stage, so I can't take risk on that kind of a situation. So I will say everything that you need to solve a question, but I will not go into those kind of intricacies of solving a question through calculations and all those things. Answer is obviously option B. Okay, try doing that. You will obviously, these are some easy calculations that you can expect for the NEET exam also, right? Let's proceed to the next question now. So in the next question, this is actually taken from the topic of these transition atoms. Okay, the order of energy levels of A, B and C are as follows. So if I start drawing this, if this is my energy level, this is another energy level, this is the third energy level. Now the topmost energy level has the maximum energy, so I will call this as C. Okay, this one is B and this one is A. Now again just see this, EC is greater than EB is greater than EA. So it is as it is given in this particular diagram, right? The wavelength corresponding to the transition C to B. So this transition is given to be lambda 1, right? This is lambda 1. B to A is lambda 2. And this particular C to A is lambda 3. So then which of the following relations is correct? So just by looking at this, I can say that this energy from C to A is equal to energy from C to B plus of energy from B to A. So this kind of transition energy can be written. The energy required for it to come down from C to A is equal to the energy that it releases by coming from C to B plus energy released from B to A. That's it. Just going through the concepts of energy in this particular transition states. I mean the atomic energy levels. So this will be Hc by lambda C to A is actually 3, isn't it? Is equal to Hc by lambda 1 plus Hc by lambda 2. Planck's constant, Planck equation that has been used here. Hc by lambda is equal to energy. So yeah, that's it. So lambda 3 is equal to lambda 1, lambda 2 divided by lambda 1 plus lambda 2. This reminds me of that resistance equation. R1 R2 divided by R1 plus R2. Simply like that, we can just go for this kind of a solution also. So for this question, I'll be marking option D as the correct statement, right? So that's it. So let's switch over to the next question now. Okay, so this question is actually not expected to the NEET exam. This used to be asked from the topic of communication systems. So this was there for all the state level entrance exam, and since this was a practice paper for the one of the state level entrance exams of this country, that is why this question is actually there. What I don't like about this particular question is that many a times they give you a tremendous calculation, because radius of the earth, so many things like that are involved over there, and we reach nowhere. And for the options sometimes can be so close that we can't go for any kind of approximation. So but this is more or less easier, it seems. A transmitting antenna of height h and the receiving antenna of height 45 meter are separated by a distance of 40 kilometer. Okay. Yeah, for satisfactory communication in the line of sight mode. Okay, fine. So the concept is very simple. If this is the earth, this is one antenna and this is another antenna, and this particular signal is given like this, isn't it? Along the line of sight, just this particular signal can be given over there. So here that straightforward equation can be used, root of 2r ht plus root of 2r hr. This is the height of the transmitting antenna, this is the height of the receiving antenna, and obviously r is the radius of the earth. Now this is equal to d. What is d here? 40 into, how much is that? 40 kilometers, isn't it? So they are separated by a distance of this whole distance it is. This whole distance is d here. So that is 40 into 10 raised to 3 meters is equal to root of 2 into 6400 into 10 raised to 3 plus, multiplied by height of the transmitting antenna that is supposed to be found out. Let's put it as h, plus root of 2 multiplied by 6400 multiplied by 10 raised to 3 multiplied by this height is 45 meters, isn't it? So if you do that, you will get h is equal to 20 meters. You can do this calculation by yourself. Okay, answer for this question is option E, that is 20 meters. Okay, so this next question is actually derived from the topic of the semiconductors. Obviously, a PN junction diode is shown in the figure, can act as a rectifier. So this is actually this PN junction diode. Okay, so an alternating current source is connected in the circuit. Now they are asking you the current versus time graph. See, this is an alternating current source. So normally the alternating current is actually represented in graph like this. In the first cycle it is up, the second cycle it is just in the reverse direction, and the third cycle is again in the forward direction, and the fourth cycle is again reverse direction. Forward direction means this direction. In the next cycle it will be in the reverse direction. Now tell me, forward direction goes through this particular diode. The forward direction is actually allowed in this particular diode, and the diode will block the reverse direction. So this kind of a movement is blocked by the diode, while all this kind of movement can be made. So this will be there, this will be there, the next one will be there, but this will not be there, this will not be there. So which graph is it? Option B is the correct answer. Easier question, isn't it? Okay, so let's proceed to the next question now. So we are coming to the last 5 questions of this particular paper, right? So let's see this. Tuning fork of frequency 512 Hertz. This question is from the topic of beat frequencies, waves, the topic of waves itself, wave mechanics. 512 is the frequency of the tuning fork, and it makes 4 beats per second with the vibrating string of a piano. So if it makes 4 beats per second, then there are two possibilities. Either the frequency of the piano string is 512 plus 4 or 512 minus 4. If this is the value, then it is 516. If this is the value, then it will be 508. Fine. Okay, then what have they said? The beat frequency decreases to 2 beats per second when the tension in this piano string is slightly increased. When the tension is increasing, then the frequency is going to increase. So both of them will going to increase. Okay, so this will be 517 or it can be 518. So it can be 519. So I'm just writing the possibilities and seeing how it goes. Or this can be 509, this can be 510, 510, it can be 511. Okay, so this is the change that can occur when you increase the tension of the string in both these conditions. Now if you consider this particular condition, as this tension is increasing, just see this 516, this gap was 4. Okay, beat frequency was 4. If it was 517, then the beat frequency becomes 5. If it is 518, then the beat frequency becomes 6. But they are saying that it decreases to 2 beats per second. Here it does not decrease, here it increases. Okay, now what about this? If you consider this particular aspect, if this is 508, then the net beat frequency was 4. When it becomes 509, the beat frequency becomes 3. Here, when it becomes 510, the beat frequency becomes 4. I mean 2. So when it is 510 minus, 512 minus 510 is 2. So the beat frequency becomes 2 over here. Okay. So that means here the beat frequency is decreasing while here it is increasing. But they are saying that it decreases over here. So obviously my answer should be 508. So the correct answer for this question is option D. Okay. Yeah. Coming on to question number. So these are not the question as per what we are following in this here. We'll go by our own question method. Okay, question numbers. Uniform wire of resistance 36 ohm is bent to the form of a circle. The effective resistance between points M and N are. So yes, so if current goes through this, then it comes over here and then it comes through this, and it also can go through this and this. That means there are two pathways for the current. This is a parallel combination. Okay, now we are supposed to find the value of the resistance of these parts. Okay, so here 30 degree is the angle subtended by this small part which is present over there. So how will I do that? 360 degree can give a resistance of 36 ohm. So that means 1 degree can give a resistance of 1 by 10 ohm. So that definitely means that 30 degree means 3 ohms. Obviously. So if this is 3 ohms, then the rest 33 ohms are in this way. Okay. So my effective combination is somewhat like this. Okay. So that means this is 3 ohm and this is 33 ohm. So obviously my answer will be 33 into 3 divided by 33 plus 3, that is 36. This is 12. Okay. So how will I get the answer for that? See, had this been 10, my answer will be 3.3. Had it been 33 by 10, my answer is 3.3. But here the denominator is increasing. That means my value will be less than 3.3. So obviously only one option is actually satisfying this. It cannot be 3 ohm. It cannot be 3 ohm, but because 12 and 33, they are not completely divisible easily. Okay. So only option I am left with is option A, and yes, that is my correct answer. For this question, I will be marking option A as the right answer. Next question is again from the topic of electrostatics. Maybe, yes. A charged particle of mass m and q is released from rest in an electric field of constant magnitude E. So that simply means that my force is equal to q multiplied by E. This implies my acceleration is equal to q E by m. So obviously, since it is released from rest, I can say V is equal to U plus q E by m into T. That means V is equal to U plus AT itself. This is equal to 0. So I got the value of velocity also. They are asking you the value of kinetic energy. So that is half m v square. So this square has to be taken. Q square E square upon m square multiplied by t square. Okay. So this will go over there. So half q E square T square by 2m. So my option is this. So answer is option B, right? Okay. So what am I left with now? So I just cleared a clutter over here. Now let's see this question now. Listen to this, guys. Two ions having equal masses but charges in the ratio of 1:2 are projected perpendicular to uniform magnetic field with speed of this much and this much. Ratio of radii. So what is this radii here? mv by qb, right? Two ions having equal masses. I'm directly going to take the ratios over here. Okay, equal masses. So this is m, and the other one is also m. Okay, the charges are in the ratio of 1:2. Velocities are in the ratio 2:3. Velocity is in the ratio 2:3, isn't it? Okay, and charges are in the ratio of 1:2. That means this will be 2 by 1, and this magnetic field is again the same. So I'll just divide it by V by V itself. This and this will get cancelled off. So the answer is obviously option E is the correct answer. Yeah. So 4:3 is my right answer. Okay. Now this one is a simple question from the concept of center of mass. A cricket bat is cut at the location of its center of mass as shown. So this was the site of center of mass somewhere here. Okay. There I am cutting this. Now it is seen that this part has less length, while the length of this part is high. Now they are showing which of these is having a higher mass. See, this can be very easily solved by this particular simple idea that center of mass is obviously towards the it will be always towards the more that particular part of the body which has more mass. Center of mass is more towards the part of the body which has more mass. Here the center of mass is towards this particular small body. That means this particular bottom piece will have the larger mass. So the correct answer for this question is option B. Okay. So with that I am stopping this question paper as of here. So I have taken all the relevant questions of a question paper and I made this video so that you can revise over here. So my approach was just to solve this in the easiest way possible. I did not go into any kind of derivations or making you understand how these things are made over there. So those kind of things have to be done in the theory topic discussions, or more exhaustive discussion will lead to increased amount of time which is required for completing this particular video. This video will become too long, which will be more difficult for you to complete. So just for the sake of solving this in the simplest way possible, I made this particular video. I hope this is actually targeted to those students who are actually going to write the NEET exam this year. So I hope it was useful for you in a way that you got some questions from another source. Okay, in that way you can consider this, and if you are able to solve these kind of questions, almost you will be able to solve most of the questions in the real NEET exam. Okay, with that I come to the end of this video. If you like this, please like, share and subscribe to my channel, and click the bell icon to receive notification whenever I upload a new video on YouTube like this. I will be solving more question papers, and yes, depending on your suggestions, I can increase the level of increase the content of explanation that I give for each questions depending on your suggestions. Okay, thank you.